Today's topic is verbs used with the dative case. You'll be learning more about the dative case soon. Today, we're really only focusing on some verbs that always take dative objects. For now, let's define the dative case as the case you put nouns in when they answer the question about a sentence, to whom or for whom. For example, let's start with a question like, wie geht's? Literally, what you're asking is, how is it going for you? You're not asking, how are you going? And you aren't being gone by someone. It's going for you. So we need to use the dative case. What this means is that we can't use the subject pronoun du, nor can we use the direct object accusative pronoun dich. We've got to use the dative pronoun dir. Similarly, if someone answered that question, they couldn't say, es geht ich gut, because they aren't doing the going. Nor are they being gone by es, they're not the direct object, so mich wouldn't work either. Instead, we'll need to use the dative pronoun mir, to me or for me, because what they're saying is, it's going well for me. If you were asking two people instead of one, the same principle would apply. But keep in mind that you're talking to two people. Usually, this would mean you'd use the word ihr instead of du, the word for y'all. But ihr is only a subject pronoun, not a dative pronoun. Instead, we've got to use the pronoun euch. And when two people answer for themselves, they wouldn't say, es geht wir gut, because you can't say it's going well we. They'll use the word uns instead. It's going well for us. Again, that dative pronoun implies the concept of to or for that person. Finally, if you were to ask an adult how they're doing, how's it going for you, we wouldn't say wie geht es dir, because that's the informal form. Instead, you'd use the phrase wie geht es Ihnen. And notice that just like the pronoun sie is capitalized, the dative pronoun Ihnen is going to be capitalized here as well. That adult could then answer something like, es geht mir gut. It's going well for me. But if there were two adults instead of saying es geht mir gut, now they would say something more along the lines of es geht uns gut. It's going well for us. But your question wouldn't change. Formal is formal no matter how many people you're addressing formally. Now that we've looked at the context of these pronouns, let's approach them systematically. We'll look at the dative case pronouns next to their nominative case counterparts so that we can compare the two. You'll be very familiar with the pronouns listed under the nominative case. These are the ones you use to conjugate verbs, because they're subject pronouns. In the dative case, ich becomes mir, du turns into dir, becomes ihm, so he becomes to him or for him, sie becomes ihr, and es becomes ihm, wir becomes uns, as you saw above, ihr becomes euch, and sie both turn into ihnen, although notice that it's lowercase when it means them, and capitalized when it means you in the formal form. Let's also take a look at some common verbs that will require the use of the dative case. As we already saw, gehen will require the dative case, but really only when you're using it in the context of wie geht's, or discussing how things are going. You wouldn't use it with the dative case when you're saying you're going to the supermarket, for instance. When used in the context of how it's going, here's how it might sound. Es geht mir heute sehr gut. Wie geht es euch, Anna und Ilse? Wie geht es Ihnen, Frau Müller? Another verb you're familiar with, gefallen, also requires use of the dative case, because things are likable to me, or to us, or to him, etc., implying that dative case. For instance, I would compliment you by telling you, Dein T-Shirt gefällt mir sehr. Or we could compliment you by saying, Dein T-Shirt gefällt uns sehr. Or I could say my father doesn't like a book by saying, Es gefällt ihm nicht. It's not likable to him. Or the game of chess is not likable to two people. Es gefällt ihnen nicht, to them. Another verb using the dative case is helfen, which means to help. For instance, I could ask Fritz, Kann ich dir helfen? Can I be helpful to you? And I'd use the dative case pronoun rather than the nominative case or accusative case pronouns du or dich. Or I could say that I help my brother. Ich helfe ihm oft. Or I could offer help to two people by saying, Ich möchte euch helfen. Let's review how to use certain verbs with the dative case. First of all, we use the dative case in order to specify to whom or for whom things are happening in a sentence. Certain verbs, such as gehen, gefallen, and helfen, will require you to use the dative case after them to say to whom something is likable or helpful, or for whom it's going well, for instance. Finally, practice these dative case pronouns, mir, dir, ihm, ihr, uns, euch, and both forms of ihnen.